You said that you got involved with Manson and Lehman back in 2015, and at that point, I think Ethereum had only just come to being in 2015, and so you're setting out with this sort of 100-year vision of a company, but smart contracts at that point were only just an idea, or only just sort of being talked about as an idea. How has your understanding of what Hedera is capable of now sort of evolved over the past 5 or 6 years, and how much of what's going on now could you sort of see at that point? I mean, I know it was it's a ledger, and how that equates into enterprise is probably quite different. You've mentioned DeFi and NFTs and a lot of those things which probably didn't exist as thoughts back then. But how has that changed for you over the years?
Yeah, it's actually remarkable. I should dig up some of the initial presentations and
great.
figure out how we can share some of those. But they are basically, there's basically a series of expanding circles. So if you think about, I would hear Lehman talk about, well, if you designed a ledger to really just be focused on cryptocurrency, it would be this small circle. And then if you designed it just to be focused on smart contracts, it would have this type of functionality and it would have this type of speed, and it would be a bigger circle.
Yeah.
And even back then he talked about, if you are designing it really to be the trust layer of the internet and to solve all of these problems, here's all the things that you have to think about. And we see that playing out today, right? We see people getting stuck, and we see them saying, I'm going to do off-chain solutions, or I'm going to do some other set of put together solutions, because we didn't think about it. We didn't have that big a vision when we started. Not us, Hedera, other people, sort of are now trying to say, well, okay, here's how we address that, because there's this thing that we didn't think about 5 years ago. And when we first started, there was a lot of sort of nodding on, oh yeah, maybe this will be used for that. But, when we look back at what the internet was used for originally and what it's used for today, you have to take that same step back and say, we cannot think that we know everything that people will use this for. So we have to do our best to look as expansively as possible and, provide the pillars that we know need to be there in a computing platform, so that people can then go and do things beyond our wildest dreams.
That's really cool. Do you think that there was a sort of, I mean, again, you were there in 2015, pretty much at the beginning of it then, and obviously that resonated with you at that moment. Like you say, that had to be pretty big to pull you away from what you were doing with your own business at the time. And but has there been since then, has there been like an aha moment for you where you've kind of found for me personally, hearing about Hedera and getting involved with it, as I've found that my appreciation for the capabilities has certainly deepened, even in the short time that I've been involved with it. To the point now where it's like I can really see, and certainly the some of the potential I believe that this can go to. For you, was there like a moment along that way where you kind of thought, no, this is really not just, I get that they're saying it's big, but I really get it.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a singular moment. I feel like I have those once every few months when we ask Lehman about something, and he's like, oh no, this is so obvious. And you're like, of course it is to you. That makes perfect sense. I think along the way there have certainly been those points of validation, right? I'm sitting in my office and I'm looking at the framed copy of the Facebook Libra,
the Wall Street Journal,
Yeah,
the Wall Street Journal ad. When they basically first
we'll post that ad for our community. It's just a brilliant ad.
But I mean, for a long time, people said there's no way, governance does not matter. Like, it'll sort itself out, all those kinds of things, and kind of looked at us like we were crazy. And some people still look at us that way, but definitely not as many. And I think as you start to see this industry evolve, people have recognized the importance of governance, right? And that's that's one example where very early on, there were discussions about, well, it should be open sourced, and this governing model is never going to work, and I think that was both a Lehman and a Mance conviction that has borne out. But it is really incredible, when we think about things like Hedera Consensus Service and putting together public and private ledgers. Those are things that just work so elegantly within Hedera, and when you look at other solutions, you go, oh, okay, well, I see that you're trying to get to the same goal, and I see that people are starting to march towards the same kinds of things, but the way that we are able to deliver some of these things and the underlying properties that this functionality then always has, to me, so it's constantly that, right? It's constantly well, of course, since you've already thought of these 5, issues, the product that we then end up bringing to market, to me, feels, so well thought out, and has considered so many aspects, and therefore has all of the traits that application developers say, yes, I need to have that.
You certainly, you certainly see more people talking about governance these days, it seems, and it might not be the same kind of governance as Hedera has, but you hear other networks talking about, our governance model, our decentralized governance, and I think that I guess that stemmed from what Hedera is doing.
And we have had to it's so funny how many people have I joke that I'll write a book someday. It's so funny how many people have said we're crazy about certain things along the way, and then a few years later you hear them sort of mimicking. I remember early on in my career, we had a competitor at LoudCloud who had just flat out copied something we did, and almost word for word in the press release, and I was so mad.
Wow.
And Mark Andreessen came up to me and he said, "Congratulations." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, this is terrible. What should we do?" And he's like, "That means you're doing your job, because they will hate you until they realize they have to love you, and then they will try to copy you."
Yeah.
Has your being involved in so early has your work involved interfacing and helping build the members of the governance council?
Yes, and it is a treat. I mean, it is a bit 24/7, in that you're like, wait, I have to coordinate with with Africa and Australia, but all of them are incredible, and it's so fun to work with them in their different capacities. Pre-COVID, to sit down with them, to participate in those meetings in person. But now even engaging with them in all the ways that we can. And it's really been incredible to see, between some of the early adopters who really had to, they took a big risk there, right? If you think about like DLA Piper, and I remember visiting with them in, when we were doing a big event in Korea, and what that took, and then seeing how far the understanding has come and how much more mainstream it has become, and how advanced the newer governing council members are in terms of their thoughts around this and their adoption, and how those early supporters really helped us to champion that with some of the newer members. It's been incredible to watch that progression.
That is so much information. I know that everyone's really enjoying it.